This is the Stingray Show, and earlier this week we did Air Force, we did Army, and tonight we are finishing up the patriotic shows talking about the Navy Midshipmen, as I am about to be joined by a former quarterback who played at Navy from 2012 through 2016. He was the AAC Player of the Year in 2015, an All American, and he still holds a lot of the rushing records for a quarterback in college football. Keenan Reynolds will join me right now on this edition of the Stingray Show to finish up our patriotic shows from this week.
Hi, this is Tim Brando with a reminder. Those of you on Tide 100.9, look out. You're about to feel the buzz of Stingray.
And with that, I want to welcome you inside the Thursday evening edition of the Stingray Show. Hope all is well with you, as tomorrow is the America's birthday and Independence Day, and I am about to be joined by an All-American who played at Navy from 2012 through 2016. He was the AAC Player of the Year in 2015, and he played in 50 games for the Navy Midshipmen and has the most career yards by a quarterback with 4,559 yards rushing. He has 88 total rushing touchdowns to his career, and he had 7 touchdowns by a quarterback rushed in one game. Please help me welcome to the Stingray Show, Mr. Keenan Reynolds. Keenan, how are things with you this evening?
Stingray, I appreciate it. I appreciate the intro. You're taking me down memory lane. Things are well. You know, we're on the eve of the 4th of July. Got some barbecue plans, so all is well on my end. How about yourself?
Doing fantastic. So Keenan, growing up, because you grew up here closer to home in Antioch, Tennessee, who were some of your idols growing up that you wanted to mold your game like?
That's a great question. I was a big Titans fan. Uh, I was like 6 when they came to Nashville, and so I was huge Steve McNair. Steve Air McNair, he was tough. He could run. He could throw. He took us to the Super Bowl, got us very close to getting that Super Bowl dub in the first inaugural season of Tennessee Titans. A legend in Nashville, rest in peace. So he was a guy that I really uh, idolized growing up. Obviously, like I used to like the Packers too before, so I like watching Brett Favre play. And then, I just tried to, as all these great quarterbacks that came before me that existed across all these different teams, I just tried to, pick up the best of their game and model it in a way that made sense for me.
So, Keenan, when did you realize that Navy and going to Navy was an option for you?
Yeah, so I'd say the summer or the spring of my junior year, Coach Ashley Ingram came and visited the school during one of our spring practices. He was the guy that recruited me. Um, he's now the head coach at Carson Newman College. He came and was like, "Hey, you should come, take a look at the Navy. Uh, we don't really care how tall you are because I'm only 5'10", so you know most D1 schools aren't looking for a 5'10" quarterback." And he's like, "We don't care how tall you are. We just care that you can move and run, and we want to show you all the things that Naval Academy offers." And so that's when I really start to do a deep dive in the academy, what the model is like, what it's like to go there, what it means to serve your country, all of those things that the academy offers and the opportunities that the academy offers. That's when I really started to dig into it, and it really made me realize, like, in the grand scheme of things, in a 20-year plan, like, going to a service academy is something that sets you up for life, and the relationships and the networking that you're able to do as a part of the academy is second to none. So I was sold. It was between Navy and Air Force when it came down to signing day, and it was just something about the Naval Academy that resonated really well with me and my family, and that was the place that I decided to go.
So, Keenan, if you would, go ahead and elaborate on what made you choose Naval Academy over the Air Force.
Like I went on a visit in Annapolis, and it's like right on the water. You're right downtown. Weather's great in the summer. And it was just like it felt like a college town. When I was talking to the coaches, I just felt like the coaches felt like almost like family.
Right.
A lot of respect for Coach Calhoun and all the things he's done. He's a fantastic coach.
Yes.
And he's done a lot of great things at the Air Force Academy. But like when I was just evaluating all the fit, personally and like location, I'm from Nashville, so Maryland is a lot closer than Colorado is. All those things kind of came into play, and in the end, Navy won out for me. But it was super close, and it really came down to like a few days before signing day before I actually pulled the trigger and made a decision.
So, Keenan, what is the process like of getting into the Naval Academy and getting ready to play college football?
Yeah, so once you get accepted into the Naval Academy, my experience, I had to go and get my local congressman to, write a recommendation letter. I had to go and do a bunch of medical screening tests to make sure that like you can actually serve in the military, right? Like, are you colorblind? Do your ears work? Are you healthy? Are there any things that, your doctors didn't find up at this point? So like super comprehensive medical exams. Once you get through all that and you get your acceptance and you get a commission to the academy, then you go, it's actually, we're about a week since the current, you go to what's called I-Day, induction day. The latest class of freshmen just experienced I-Day about a week ago. So that's like your first day of boot camp. So you do like 6 to 8 weeks. I think it's like 8 weeks long of quote unquote boot camp. And it's basically an indoctrination to what does it mean to be in the military? Like, how do you wear your uniform? How do you make your bed? What are the standards? What are the bits of information that you need to have, memorized, code, all the things that you would think about when you think about boot camp in the military. It kind of encompasses that, along with like the unique elements of the academy. After that's over, then you kind of roll as a freshman right into fall camp for Navy football. So like, end of July, early August is when college football starts to ramp up.
Yep.
So you literally come out of boot camp where you're marching around and running miles, and now you're putting on a helmet and sprinting and playing football. So it's definitely an adjustment. It's two adjustments, right? Like you show up, you've probably been training all summer to get ready for college football, and then you start doing boot camp stuff where you don't lift a weight. You're doing push-ups, planks, and sit-ups, and body weight squats, and you're running miles. Whereas for football, we sprint, so it's a totally different physical requirement. And then at the end of that 6-week mark, you pivot right back into football, and you're expected to join, the rest of your teammates who have been training the entire summer to get ready for training camp. So it's a super tough transition for freshmen to like do both and like get their bodies ready to do both.
And Keenan, how did you do with that experience there, doing that your first time?
I lost a lot of weight. I lost a lot of weight. I think I showed up like over 190. I was like 193 or something like that. And by the time I got to like preseason camp, I was about 10 pounds lighter. So I felt like I was skin and bones just from all the running. And you don't get to eat. You got to eat fast, right? Like, so you don't get to eat and do protein shakes and all that stuff. So I had to kind of like, I started a little bit on the back foot, but I felt like football is football, right? Like, played it my entire life. So once we got back to playing football, I felt really comfortable transitioning. And then it was just about learning the playbook. I think that my experience was a bit easier than, say, if you were an offensive lineman, right? Like, they got to be big and strong, and I just needed to be kind of quick and fast. So I had it a little easier based on my position.
So, Keenan, speaking of being quick and fast, your first game action came in 2012 when Navy started off against Notre Dame at a neutral site and then at Penn State. Talk about what it was like to play both of those powerhouse teams to begin your career.
Well, so it was incredible. Like you asked me earlier on, like, why Navy, right? Like, so another part of that I didn't mention was they play Notre Dame every year. They had just played Ohio State like while I was in high school, and I remember watching that on TV. And so it's like, yeah, every year we played these like big brand, marquee brand schools. We go to bowl games and we compete against these like very large, uh, SEC type schools. So to have the chance as an undersized guy, under recruited guy, to play against that type of talent, that's exactly what everybody dreams of. And so we went to Dublin, and like the whole freshman class was like, we got to make the travel team, like, so we can fly to Dublin and play in a different country. Like that's what everybody was looking forward to. So, to be a backup, be on a travel team, be out there, and you got Notre Dame. Like, you grew up watching Notre Dame, and there they are right across the field. You're playing against them. And I'll never forget the quarterback who was starting at the time had an ankle injury. And they were yelling my name on the sideline to start warming up. And I just remember going from like calm to very nervous in the blink of an eye because it was like, you're about to go in. And then I eventually went in late once the game was out of hand. They put me in. And before I ran out there, they said, Keenan, don't fumble the ball. Terrible last words you should say to your freshman quarterback as he's running on the field. And unfortunately, that same series, I fumbled the ball and turned it over. So that's like my very first game action Navy football memory. But it was a great like icebreaker. So then we fast forward to Penn State. So now you go from playing Notre Dame in a different country to being in Happy Valley, playing in Penn State. You got the all-white 100,000 fans. And I just remember I made a few plays in that game. Like I had a long run. I was like, that was like the game where I got confidence that like, hey, I belong on this level. I can play with the best and I can play at a high level, right? This is Penn State we're playing against. This isn't like, some, 1AA school you never heard of. This is the Penn State. And I'm out here making plays and, competing with these guys. So that was like for me, that was confirmation that I belonged. And ever since after that game, I think the rest is history. That gave me the confidence I needed to excel to the next level.
Now, Keenan, everybody always talks about Army versus Navy, Navy versus Army, but there's one game that hardly we ever hear about, and that is Navy versus Army, and both of them facing Air Force. Talk about what the Air Force rivalry is like for Navy, please.
I'd argue when I first got to Navy, it was probably more heated than the Army game. Now,
Okay.
by the time I left, like Army was a pretty intense game as far as like the back and forth, the trash talk, and like just the intensity of the game. Like they're both the cream of the crop. Like they're both the crown jewels of football in my opinion. But Air Force has always been a really tough game. It's tough to win in Colorado. In Colorado Springs, like it's a really hard place to play. But that game is, I think on the level of importance, it is equally as important. You don't get the bye week and as much pageantry and the special uniforms and all the things that kind of surround the Army Navy game.
Right.
But like the quality and the intensity of play is right up there with the Army game. And I think what takes Army over the top is like it's what everybody talks about, right? Like it's its own thing. It's got college game day, but that Air Force game is like key to like really achieving our goals every year. Like the goal every year is to win the Commander-in-Chief's trophy, and the first thing you got to do that is beat Air Force. And so it's a really big game, and it can set the trajectory for the rest of your season. A good showing there can propel you to a really good season. A tough showing there, not always, but sometimes can like sort of tank your season. So it's really important to us.
So, Keenan, in 2012, Navy was able to beat Air Force in an overtime win, 28-21. Talk about that game of Navy versus Air Force there in 2012.
Man, that's one I'll never forget. It was cold. We played at 9 a.m. in Colorado time. It was a 9 a.m. game, which I I haven't played a 9 a.m. game since I was like 5 years old.
Right.
And it was snowing at the beginning of October. So like we just come, and in Maryland it was hot, and then you go out to California and now it's snowing and icy. And I just remember like we were in a slump, we were losing, we couldn't get anything going on offense. And that game, like we had a little momentum on offense. And the starter at the time, he had injured his ankle in the Notre Dame game, like I said, and he'd been battling that ankle injury all year. And he went down again. And they told me to warm up. By this point, I was used to the routine. Like I had played pretty much every game because he was either hurt or like hurting, and they would pull him out and put me in to like give him a break from the injury. And so I was used to like, hey, it's time to warm up. It's the Air Force game, whatever. And I remember him coming back and saying, Coach, I'm fine. Like I can go. And so I'm about to put my headset back on and get back into doing the backup thing. And they were like, no, we're going to go with Keenan. And at this point, like it's the fourth quarter, we were down by 8 and we were getting the ball back, and they still wanted to go with me even when the starter was like, I'm fine. And we went right down the field. We scored a touchdown. We went for 2, got the 2-point conversion, and now it's a tie ball game. Momentum swing completely. We forced overtime. We scored a touchdown in overtime and won the game. And just like I think what stood out for me from that game was the belief of the coaching staff that in like the biggest moment where like our season probably literally could have gone like all the way away. We were 1-3 at the time, so they could have pretty much tanked our season.
Right.
They put an untested freshman in on the road against one of our biggest rivals in the fourth quarter, down by 8, and believed that I could put something together to go score. And when I went in the game, like my mind I wasn't nervous. My mind was like blank. I don't even remember processing what was happening. I was literally just like, here's the play, run the play. Okay, next play. And it just was all the way down the field. That was kind of the mentality that I had. And I think any other way that if I would approach it any other way, probably wouldn't have had the same amount of success. But that is the start of like, from there I became the starter, and I never looked back. And I was never going to give the opportunity to anybody else to be the starter. So that game holds a lot of significance in my life and the story of my time at the Naval Academy. But it's almost like a movie when I think about like the situation that I was placed in as a freshman.
So, Keenan, later that season in 2012, you got your first taste of America's game, the bitter rivalry between Navy and Army. Talk about that experience of playing in your first Army-Navy matchup.
Yeah, I remember pulling up to the stadium, and all the games we'd went to before, we get there 2 hours early or whatever, it's usually a ghost town, right? Like nobody's in the stands. You may have your straggler tailgaters, but when you pull it to the Army game, there's probably 20,000 people already in the stands before the team even gets there, and there's like 50 more that are in the parking lot tailgating and having a good time. And it was when we pulled up to Lincoln Financial Field in Philadelphia where I was like, oh, so this is what everybody was telling me about. Like it hit totally different when we pulled up to that game. And when you play in the game, it just felt like the atmosphere is just like unlike anything that I had experienced, even the Air Force game up until that point. Like it's its own unique feel. It just like, I guess maybe you can compare it to like NFL playoff football. Like that's kind of the atmosphere that it tends to invoke. So we were losing, and we put together a drive in the fourth quarter to go and take the lead. And again, it was one of those like kind of storybook drives of like making we had stalled a bit in the second half, and that drive, we figured it out in the fourth quarter, went right down the field, scored a touchdown, and the rest is history. And so like that, again, kicked off the saga in my career for Army. And it was absolutely incredible experience.
So, Keenan, you guys capped off the 2012 season with a win over Arizona State in the bowl game. Talk about playing Arizona State and capping it off with a bowl game.
So we lost the game to Arizona State, but the bowl experience, again, first time doing that, and it was great. Like we were in California. We probably had too much fun out there. We didn't play great, but it was a good experience to like kind of have the rewarding of like of a tough season, winning enough games to go into a bowl game. Arizona State was a formidable opponent, another big time Power Five, a Power Four team or whatever, and so that was just kind of the theme of my time at the academy. Is we went to bowls all 4 years, and we played like big time schools for the most part. Not all the time, but for the most part, we played bigger schools, and they gave us an opportunity to really showcase our skills on a national level.
So, Keenan, the following season in 2013, you set the NCAA record for the most rushing touchdowns by a quarterback in the San Jose State game with 7 touchdowns in a 58-52 win. Talk about that incredible 7 touchdown performance.
Yeah, so going into that game, one of my linemen, I'll never forget this. He was like, "Hey, Keenan, if you score 7 more touchdowns this year," we had 3 games. We had the San Jose State game, the Army game, and then we were already bowl eligible at that point. So he was like, "You only need 7 touchdowns to break the single season record." This is like the week of San Jose. And then we get to the game, and I end up scoring 7 in that one game. But what I remember distinctly about that game was we were winning 31-30 in the fourth quarter. We had the ball. We were in the red zone, and we called a run play. It was a QB run play, and I take off running, and it was like unusually easy to get to the end zone. Like nobody was trying to tackle me. People were just kind of looking at me, and I'm like jogging to the end zone, looking around, trying to figure out what's happening. And after I scored, I'm like, all right, yeah, we scored. We're up by 8 now. And my teammates were like, you shouldn't have scored. You should have got down. Like they were letting you score. I didn't even like process that they were like intentionally letting me score. And if I would have just slid on a 10-yard line, we'd have won the game in regulation, and I would have never scored 7 touchdowns. So it wasn't my intent to keep scoring touchdowns. I just was just playing the game, but it was just funny because like had that not happened, then what happened in overtime would have never occurred either. Right. But then they ended up going right down the field on us to tie the game and send us to overtime, and then the rest is history. But that game was incredible, just like how things were happening. Like it just at some point it felt like everything was in slow motion, and to see us go back and forth, and then finally make a play in the third overtime to win the game, I was just so relieved because I was like, I'm ready to go. It was late. I was like, I'm ready to go home.
Right.
I felt bad because I shouldn't have scored at the end of regulation, but man, it was incredible, incredible game to be a part of, and again, another one of the ones that comes up often.
So, Keenan, what are some other memorable moments for you of that 2013 season?
Yeah, I think it was just, that game and then beating Army again. And like we played in the snow. So it was like it was a whiteout game. It was a lot of snow on the field, and we beat them. We blew them out that year. So that was like a really fun opportunity to be a part of. And, breaking the single season record in that game was great. And I think those are probably the highlights there. 2013 was a great season for us. And, again, we just kind of kept the momentum train running, getting back-to-back CIC trophies. Mm-hmm. It was great because we beat Air Force pretty handily that year too. So that was a really good year for us.
So, Keenan, in 2014, your team finished 8-5. What were some of your fondest memories of the next season in 2014?
Maybe not so fond, but I do remember losing to Air Force in Colorado. So that was pretty. That's a sticky memory. I wouldn't call it a fond memory, but I think about that. I think I got injured that year. So like coming out of the Air Force, I was injured going into the Air Force game, got injured again coming at the end of the Air Force game. And so like that year for me was a lot of adversity,
Right.
physical adversity that I hadn't really faced up until that point. And I think the ability for myself and then as a team, like we went on a little bit of a losing skid. And I think the ability for myself and the team to kind of like toward this back half of the year, get back on track, beat Army that year, go to a bowl game, win the bowl game that year. I think that was a nice turnaround story. And again, just a lot of like motivation and, experience of like dealing with adversity, dealing with being in a slump, finding your way out of the slump, and then excelling on the other end of it. So that's something that I think it was pretty memorable about that season. And then we opened that year with Ohio State in Baltimore. So that was really cool. And that was the year that Ohio State won a national championship game. So, yeah, I mean, I think lots of things to call out as may not necessarily be completely positive, but like just, obviously really, really bright memories for me.
So, Keenan, your senior season at Navy, you led them to an 11-2 record and a win versus Pitt in the Military Bowl. Talk about that journey of leading your team to an 11-win season, your senior season at Navy.
I don't think you could script it any better. Maybe if we would have won the AAC, but like that year was phenomenal. Like we were so focused as a team. We were playing at such a high level every single week. It was absolutely fantastic to be a part of and to be in my senior year, to be a captain and leading, that group of men. That was something I'd probably talk about for the rest of my life. And then, we beat Army, we blew out Air Force. Like it was just great, and we got the bowl win at the end. We played in our home stadium for the bowl, which we were kind of bummed about, but it turned out to be a pretty great experience for us. So, that year was great. Obviously went on to do bigger, more things, on the football aspect, but that year was absolutely good for us.
So, Keenan, after Navy, you were drafted into the NFL. What was the biggest transition for you of going from college to the NFL?
Changing positions. Number one, I'd played quarterback my whole life, and then now I'm, being asked to play at the highest level, a different position that I've never played in a game before. And that was really hard, and I learned a lot of lessons along the way. But moving to the NFL was a literal childhood dream come true. That was the only thing that I'd ever dreamed about as a child of being is in the NFL, and so to accomplish that was indescribable. And I think I just learned a lot about being a professional. Like, how do you approach your profession on a day to day that I didn't truly appreciate prior, and I don't think I really appreciated it until I started to meet and be teammates with some real professionals and see how they approach their craft. And I think there's like lessons to be applied there by anybody who's in any profession. You don't have to be a pro athlete to take your craft seriously and have the level of dedication. And I think that I always thought that the players were just, I knew they were good, but I didn't realize like how they're almost like football savants when it comes to like what they do. Like they just understand the game and how to manipulate the game at such a deep level that the average fan and even somebody who played college football couldn't even appreciate until you get in a room and you see the work that they put in, the amount of detail that goes into planning and execution. I think there's a lesson in that for everyone.
So, Keenan, what are some memories that you will take with you of playing in your or living your dream of playing in the NFL?
I think the moment, the feeling in the moment of getting drafted here, I waited for hours and hours, and then I finally got a call that I was getting drafted. I think being on Monday night, like playing on Monday Night Football,
Mhm.
uh, going to a playoff game, like being in a playoff game and experiencing that atmosphere and the difference between that and regular season games, being on the sidelines and watching like Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes, uh, like up close, like these guys are unreal. Like they're just totally different. Playing with Russell Wilson, like the type of professional that he is, type of person he is, the friends I met along the way. I got so many different things that I can call out about being in the NFL that while I didn't perform at the level that I did in college, like were just incredible memories that I can take with me, pass down to my kids, and just always kind of reflect on.
So, Keenan, after your college football and NFL days, you served our country in the U.S. Navy. Please explain to us what you did to serve our country.
Yeah, so while I was playing in the NFL, I was also in the reserves.
Okay.
And so during off seasons in the NFL, I would periodically, sometimes for a span of like a month, sometimes 45 days, 2 weeks, whatever, and then every weekend a month, while I could, I would put the uniform on and go and do my job in the Navy. I was commissioned as a cryptologic warfare officer, and so that was my designation while I was in uniform. And so, I would go do training for that. I'd go complete qualifications for that, in various locations. So while my service looked a bit different from my classmates that I graduated with,
Mhm.
that was the way that I was able. That was the deal, and that was the way that I was able to play in the NFL. I stayed in the reserves until about a year ago.
Right.
So I did 8 years in the reserves, and so now I'm completely out of the military. But that service is definitely something that I'm really proud of, in the capacity that I was able to do it.
So, Keenan, how do you want your football career looked at when you talk about your career at Navy?
Um, I think it's just, I think that, I'm appreciative of the people that I played with, the coaches that I had, the opportunities I was given. And I think I just want people to look back on, me as a person, as a leader, and like be proud to have played with or been around me. Because there's a lot of people that, are great players, but people don't want to be around them. So I'm more concerned about, my reputation and standing amongst my peers and amongst the coaches than I am about some individual stat that I've long forgotten, right? Like, because when
Yes.
it's all said and done, records get broken, stats are forgotten, but like people remember how you made them feel. They remember the type of person you were, and how you were to be around. And so, like, maintaining those lasting relationships and your reputation, I think, is the most important thing.
So, Keenan, going back to the Army Navy game briefly, regardless of political affiliation, what is it like when a sitting president comes to the Army Navy game and stands on the sidelines with you guys?
That is like, I unfortunately never got to experience
Okay.
a sitting president, but I can tell you, like, just we did get to go to the White House 3 times while I was there, and we were that was like our thing. Like, how did we get to the White House? Like, nobody was like, we didn't nobody discussed political affiliation.
Right.
It was just like, I want to go to the White House. I want to shake the hand of the most powerful man in the world. And so I think all the players on both sides are extremely proud that the president cares enough to come and watch the games. And you can look at the legacy of presidents over the years,
Mhm.
that have attended the game. I think the players love that. They get excited about that. It kind of just highlights the importance of that game to America. And then subsequently, when you win the CIC, you get to go to the White House. You get to experience that. Like, not everybody gets to go inside the White House. Not everybody gets to shake the hand of the president, regardless of who it is. So I think everybody strives. Everybody in the Service Academy strives to attend, strives to complete that milestone, and is really like excited when those things happen.
So, Keenan, my final question for you. What does the 4th of July mean to you, and how will you be celebrating it on Friday?
Yeah, I think uh, despite our differences and the things that people see and hear on TV and the things that are like at debate in this country, I think the one thing we can't deny is our ability to have the debate and to be in a country where you can have these discussions and have freedoms. So I think 4th of July is just an opportunity to reflect on those freedoms, regardless again of where you stand on the political aisle. So that's kind of how I look at it. And for me, I'll probably pull the grill out, throw some burgers and dogs and steaks on there, and maybe a cup of brews. I'm not really a beer guy, but I might make an exception for the 4th of July.
Dude, Keenan, this has been an absolute blast. Thank you so much for taking time to join me. The floor is all yours for anything else that you would like to say.
No, Stingray, I really appreciate it. I appreciate you working with me and moving the schedule around. This was great. It was great to go down memory lane and think about all the great times in Navy. And I'm looking forward to watching these dudes dominate again this year after the incredible year they had last year. I'll be around, and I can't wait to see it.
And Keenan, briefly, how do you think your Navy midshipmen are going to do in 2025?
I think they're going to exceed the expectations that they set for themselves after last year. They blew everyone away last year, and now every team that they play is going to be targeting them and trying to perform their best against them because of who they were last year. They're going to have a lot of hype and a lot of coverage, and I think they'll be able to exceed that hype and do some great things.
So, Keenan, thank you as always, and I will leave you with this. Go Navy, beat Army. This has been awesome. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you. Beat Army.
Yes, sir. And hey, happy 4th, okay?
Happy 4th to you too.
So, guys, that is going to wrap up the Keenan Reynolds interview. Really do want to thank him for taking time out of his busy schedule to join us. And now we have talked about all 3 of the military football teams. We've talked about Air Force. We've talked about Army. And now we've talked about the Navy midshipmen. And so this definitely is what makes America amazing, is the pageantry of college football and the pageantry of our country.